Okay, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you for taking the time to join me for this feature spotlight on the aggregate data entry app. Um, this is the first webinar of our new series that we're calling Feature Spotlights. And the purpose of these webinars is to take a little bit of a deeper dive into certain newer features and apps in DHIS2. We have the what's new and the release webinars, but usually those skim over a lot of the details. So we thought it would be a good idea to take some time to come have a look at some of our newer, but maybe not brand new features and apps and spend a little bit more time going into them and having a look through it. So I'm lucky enough to be the first cab off this rank today with the aggregate data entry app. But we have four in this first part of the series, and we're going to see how it goes and assess where we go more. So the ones that are coming up, as you can see here, we've got the Capture app, Line Listing app, and Android Analytics coming up in February and March. So today, as I said, I'm going to be going through the new aggregate data entry app. Going to have a little look at the interface and spend a bit of time on how we configure the forms and how that has changed, but also going over some of the things that have been there in both versions of the app. Okay. And then I'm going to look into some more of the details. So we're going to look into validation and the other detail screens within the data entry app. Then I'm going to go through the configuration, talk about custom forms, and then what we've got coming up next. Okay, so firstly, we do have two data entry apps at the moment for aggregate data entry. And there's a bit of overlap, so we like to introduce the new apps and give time for people to discover them and get used to them. This new version of the data entry app was released in 39, the DHS core version, and the old one has been running in parallel and will continue running until the next release of 42. And then the existing data entry app will be retired, and the new data entry app will be the only one there. So the main reasons for this upgrade was that it was a long overdue technical upgrade from the framework that was running the system, and we've upgraded the whole back end so that we don't need to use the Struts framework anymore, which is why we're removing the old entry app. And so this new version is a lot more future-proof. We're adding a lot more. It's a lot easier to update. It's better performing, and we'll go through some more of the changes now. Okay, so this is just a little bit of a first example of how it's different. We've got the old data entry app, the new data entry app, which currently has beta after the name. We'll be removing that shortly, so keep an eye out for that in the App Hub. But let's dive right in and have a look at the differences. So when you open up the new data entry app, you still have to select your context. So the data set, organization unit, and period of which you want to collect data for. But this time, we're selecting the data set first. So we'll go through, select the data set. Then we get to select the organization unit from a very similar org unit tree, and then the period that we want to collect data for. And that opens up the form. So having a quick look at the screen layout and how it's a little bit different. Here we've got what we call the top bar, which has all the information around the context, the data set, the organization unit, the period, and the sections. And that bar now stays in place when you scroll up or down so that you can change your periods or change any of the other parameters directly from the data entry screen without having to change the location. And the same is true for the bottom bar, stays in location. So we've got the data workspace here, the top bar and the bottom bar. The data entry works in a similar way. entering fields, and if it's a valid input, the field goes green. If it's an invalid input, if I try to enter letters where numbers are expected, it will give me an error and turn red and say invalid value not saved. In the previous version, it would pop up with a window, and I need to that data won't be saved, but we can move it in the red bar.
David, sorry to
Yep.
interrupt. Are you doing a demo right now?
Yes.
Because we only see your PowerPoint screen with the two different versions.
Oh, thank you. Are you seeing the?
Yeah, now we see it.
Sorry about that. Okay. So let me start that part again. Okay, we're back at opening the data entry screen. I'll go through this quickly because you heard at least that we're going through choosing the data set, the organization unit, and the period to bring up the form. So again, just demonstrating the top bar staying in place while I scroll, and the bottom bar staying in place while scrolling. And then again, the visuals that missed last time was the color changing when a valid field is entered, when valid value is entered, and then if you enter something that's not valid for that data element, such as letters in a number field, it will go red and tell you that that value is not being saved. The other major element of the screen layout of the data app is the details. So if I click View Details down the bottom here, we get this detail pane on the right-hand side. In the previous version of the app, this was a pop-up, but the information is the same. It's enhanced visuals. So if you've entered a value and you want to mark it for follow-up, you can do that here. Add a comment and save. We don't have any min-max limits on this value, but we could add them. This user has the right permissions and access to add the min-max values. Otherwise, you would just be able to view them instead of add and save them if it was a data entry user. And you can also see this history. So we get a nice little graph of what this value was in this data set previously, and an audit log of who has been editing this data. The detail screen changes when you've changed the focus on the screen to a different field. And the other thing I wanted to cover is that you can use the keyboard notification, keyboard's shortcuts tab and arrows to scroll through while you're entering data. Just going to move back to the presentation. Can you see the PowerPoint now? Someone can let me know.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So, as I was saying, that the main elements of the data entry app are the same as the previous version. You still define the data that you need to collect in the data set using the maintenance app, and it's still using the same data sets to render it. So you don't actually have to change anything with the way that you've got the data sets configured. You just need to open the same data set into the new data entry app and start collecting. So this is a visual just of the different elements of the screen that I've gone through, that I just went through, and validation and the details, including the min-max limits, just to see how those elements have evolved in the new app. Okay, so now we're getting into the configuration options that are available in the new data entry app. There's still 3 form types. So the first being the default form. So if you create a data set, add the elements that you want to collect, but don't make any other changes, then this is the form that you'll get when you open the data entry app. So it's just got all of the data values, all of the data elements and the values ready to put them in. The second form type, it's called a section form. And this is where you start dividing up. You can start dividing up the data elements in the form into separate sections. We'll go into some more detail about the options that that gives you in terms of configuration and visualizing the data for collection. And then the third type is a custom form. So custom forms you can create with HTML and style them how you'd like, add images and add text. There are some differences in how custom forms can be set up compared to the old data entry form, whereas we now don't support JavaScripting in custom forms. It was a security risk how that they were set up. So that functionality has been removed, but you can still create HTML custom forms. So I'll just click back to the application. I'm going to go to the maintenance app and we'll see that in the maintenance app, and go to data sets. You can see here that each of the data sets has a different form type available here. And you can filter based on default, custom, and section. To have a look at the forms. All right, now we're going into a little bit more detail in the configuration. We'll start off with the section form. So we're going to take this malaria monthly form as an example. And we'll show you how. Click on the 3 buttons on the side. We click to edit the whole data set. And then we select this option, render sections as tabs. So we go through, we're not going to change everything. We're not going to go through the whole setup of everything that you can change in a data set. We're just having a look at configuration now. So I've changed that to render as tabs. And then if I come back to the data entry form and refresh, you can see we now have these tabs across the side. So each of these sections, which has the data elements that we've segmented into the sections, becomes tabs along the top, and you can browse through and have a look. We're now going to have a look at how we can configure different parts of that section. Come back. Got row and column totals. So now that I've converted this form into a section form, we have the option to manage sections. And then each of these sections we can treat a little bit differently. So I do want to show row and column totals for this top section. Again, come back, refresh the page, and we can see we've got row and column totals that do update as you go. I haven't added the totals for the other columns, so you can see that they're not there. We've got disable automatic groupings of data elements. This is something that really is only used in very specific cases, where when you've added data elements to a specific section, ones that have the same category options will group automatically together. So we can see these questions are grouped together, and the receiving the treatment is which drugs is separate because it doesn't have the same disaggregations. If we did want to disable that automatic grouping to have a specific order of questions, we can do that again here in this disable automatic grouping of sections, and then change the order here. In this example, the categories are the same, so it won't make a difference. But as you can see from the screenshot, so there's some cases where the ordering is more important than the grouping, and you have the option to do that. You can also manage the gray fields. Let me show you how to do this. This is where the automatically generated options may not be relevant. So as you can see in this screenshot, we're looking for adolescents, but the age ranges that we're looking at include people that are younger than adolescents, so we don't actually want to collect data for that. So we want to be able to grade them out so that people can't put data where it doesn't make sense. So to do that, we go to the section that we want to have a look at, click these three dots on the side, go to Manage Gray Fields, and then we can choose which fields are enabled or disabled here. So once again, just showing how these changes come through. And you can see these fields are grayed out now. And I can't enter any data into them. Just change that back. And now we're getting onto so all of those previous configuration options were available in the previous data entry app. And now we're getting onto some elements that are new and unique to the new data entry app. And the purpose of these changes that we've made is several options. First, for several reasons. Firstly, just to give more flexibility to how you can present your forms to collect the data, to make it um, easier to make the most user-friendly form that you're looking for. Secondly, to reduce the necessity for making fully custom forms, because making custom forms has a certain amount of extra overhead to manage and to create. So the functional analysis team had a look at why people were making custom forms, went a look into, had a lot of surveys and feedback as to which elements people were customizing that they couldn't do from the normal configuration. And then we took that information, synthesized it, and then had a look at how we could add those configuration options directly to the data entry form so that people could get the same results without having to go to the effort of customizing the forms. Make it easier, quicker, easier to manage, and also open up the possibility to have these configuration changes across platform so that the Android mobile app could use them as well. Because when you make a custom form with HTML and JavaScript and have it completely custom, it can't be consumed by the app. So this is a way that we're looking at adding configuration options to give you more flexibility. I'm going to run you through a couple of the ones that we have now that are live as of version 41. And then I'm also going to talk about some of the ones that are coming up in our next release in version 42 at the end. And then I'll mention some of the features that are still in development that will come in later releases. Okay. So let's come and have a look at the pivoting of data elements and categories. It's otherwise known as transposing sometimes. So this is when you want to take the top row and the columns and flip them around. Let's have a look at how we do that. Come back to the maintenance app. Again, we can do this section by section. So we've got the sections as tabs, and scroll down here, and we've got these new pivot options. So if I want to pivot categories as rows, data elements as columns, can select that, save, come back and refresh, and we can see that we've got the age is now in the columns, and the data element types are now in the, sorry, yeah, the age is the rows and the data elements are the columns. And you see it's different from section to section, but I can go back and do that for the other sections as well. So this is particularly useful when you have a lot of options in a category and it might stretch out past the screen. And having the more vertical format is more user-friendly for the screen. Okay. And put them back. And if you want, if it doesn't look exactly how you want, you can just flip it back. So this gives the admins and the form configurators a lot more flexibility to try out different things. It's very easy, not having to worry about code and deploying forms and things like that. So we also have one more. I'll just have a quick look. I'll show you that. We have another way to pivot the information, which is you can choose one category to the rows. So you can choose one of the categories you want to move to the row, and then it will render like that. This is an example that is, and this is a feature that's useful in some cases. This example doesn't render in a way that's an improvement. So I won't demonstrate it right now, but there's some specific cases when you have a combination of categories that it's very useful. We'll leave that one as a default for now. Okay. The other thing that we've added, which is another reason that people are customizing forms quite heavily, is just adding text before and after a section form to add some more context and some more information. So we've got that ability. You can paste information in there, and it's not just text. There's some basic HTML tags. You can add links, underlying text, bold or italics. It's not full HTML, but there's enough there to be very useful. Um, so I'll show you quickly how to do that. See down here, we've got content before and after. I've got some code that I had already prepared. Save that. Go back and refresh, and you can see that the information's got here. So whether it's extra checks that you want to put in, links to the criteria, and then web links that you can link as well, where relevant. And then the last type of form that we've got there is the good old custom form. So we do acknowledge that the same custom forms might not necessarily render in exactly the same way in the new data entry app if you've used functionality to design that form that's no longer supported, but the ability to make changes. So you can see in this example, we've put in alternating row colors, add a flag logo. You can change the font size, a lot of things like that. So we can still add a lot of form customization. Okay. Um, the other configuration options that are coming soon in version 42, we'll go over quickly. So these are built and in the new version of the app that will be available as soon as we release the new version 42. We've got vertical tabs. So when you've got the tab menu, we've got the options going across the top. Now we can switch it and have it coming vertically. So it's a preference that some people like to do. Again, it was based on the feedback that we got from the reason people are customizing forms. The other one is Another one is collapsing and expanding sections. So you can see here this top section's being collapsed. The little arrow clicks, drops it down, brings it back up again. So if you've got a lot of sections and you want to move between them, that could be really handy. And then the last feature coming in 42 is title and subtitle. So for the whole form, you can now it's very similar to the way that I just added the text before and after sections. You can add text that is at the top of the form and renders as a title and a subtitle with similar HTML um, tagging allowed. The other parts I don't have a slide for it, but in the other parts that we're working on beyond 42 is increasing the form logic that you could do in a form. So um, similar to program rules in Capture, where you can do things like conditional formatting on hiding and showing fields and sections based on the answers and responses in previous fields, and changing colors, auto-filling values, things like that. There's a lot of work behind that. There's a lot of thinking going into it that we would like to develop a lot more before we release it. So that's a little way away, but it's something that we've acknowledged that we would like to do next. I'm just looking at the time, and I've gone a lot faster this time than I did in previous run-throughs. So we do have a fair bit of time left. So I'm going to have a quick look at the chat. Um, and wonder if there's any questions that have come up that we can take this time to address. I don't see any questions.
There are questions in the chat all the way at the bottom. I see two questions.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I didn't see that. There's a question about whether the form types work with the Capture app. So these form types are specific to the data sets in the aggregate data entry. The Capture app for individual data or tracker information has a separate form building section, a form process. So the same section forms and custom forms isn't quite applicable to that. So thanks for that question, Maymika. That's a good question. Yep, as Shurajit said. And how are they going to be implemented in the Android app? Yes, Ben asked that. So the Android team is currently having a look at the implementations for the section forms, especially how we're doing the pivoting. And but it's the way that it's being presented, it allows it to be consumed. Previously the custom forms weren't even visible to the new app. Now these data set configurations are, and the Android team is working out how to process and visualize those So keep an eye out to come. Yeah. Okay, and this question around multi-org unit in the old app. Um, the multi-org unit app is not supported currently in the new data entry app. That's something we're having a look at. Um, that still needs to be assessed to be added. Yes. So you're on Paul. That's a good question. I should mention that. Search for data sets. Okay, so this is a good opportunity to say these are this is the new aggregate data entry app as it is, but we do have some other improvements that have been brought up previously that we're looking to add. Search for data sets is definitely in there. We would like to get around to adding that soon. So once the app has been released, it will be like a lot of apps in the App Hub on continuous release, which means that we can update the data entry app itself without having to wait for the core DHIS2 releases that are every year. So we can release new features um, independent of those. Search for data sets is something that's definitely high up on our list. There's a question around plugins for the Capture app. The Capture app, we're ahead of us with ahead of this app with adding plugins, and that's definitely something that we're looking to add for the functionality. We don't have it now, but that's good to hear that that's something we're looking out for, and something that we will definitely be assessing. So thanks for that question, Maximo. Brenna's asked, what am I most excited about the new data entry app? Um, oh, it's also exciting. How do I choose, Brenna? I'm just most excited about the new layout and how it looks so much um, more modern, and it gives us a lot more flexibility um, to make changes to. The previous version was a little bit hard to maintain. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about adding more configuration options to give everyone more flexibility in terms of of making the data entry apps very flexible. So more conditional formatting, changing colors, skip logic, things like that, so that we can have um, more powerful forms more quickly without having to rely on customization. We do acknowledge that there'll always be the need. People will always have some requirements that require some customization. So um, there's always the option to create custom apps, and the extensibility team are working a lot on making it easier to create apps within the app framework. So there will be customization options, but it's just more likely that in the future we'll be looking at creating custom apps for data entry rather than custom forms within the data entry form. Do we have no more questions? I can happy to share the slides. Yes, totally. Um, Thanks for sharing. And if you have any more questions that come up after this presentation, please feel free to use the COP, and I'll make sure I get them. All right, we've got a question from Jeffrey. The audit trail log incremental only show last update? No, it's incremental. Um, Brenna's asked if we have any statistics on the usage of the legacy and the new data entry app. We don't currently have those track the usage of the apps. That would be great information. We'd like to look at adding that functionality to the App Hub soon, or to DHIS2 soon, so we can track. Um, if we don't have any more questions, um,
I guess we can wrap up early if there are no more questions, right?
I guess, yep.
Um,
And so thank you everyone for your time. And if you do have any more questions that come up, please feel free to get in contact directly with me, or with the or through the COP.